What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Grab Your Torch with Caleb and Joel. We are here to recap the Survivor 45 finale, which was an incredible finale, which uh, topped off an incredible season as well. And so, what were your thoughts about the finale? And we have D as our winner of the season. I cannot believe
Wow.
it. I was just thinking, like, how would you let her get to the end after how much she did this season? But she did, and not she's proven to be one of the best winners ever, not just of the new era. She's definitely the top of the new era for sure, in my opinion. But what's
Um,
your thoughts?
I definitely think it was a great season. Definitely some of the highlights of just modern Survivor in general. Like obviously new era, some great votes, but like I think the final five round was like crazy and like such a interesting way where I feel like final five is kind of boring. Where like at least in modern Survivor, it's like you got to get out the biggest threat before they can get into fire making, and it was just so random. But I think it was such a perfect story that we didn't get anything right this season. Austin was not the fallen angel, but I mean they threw it in our face. They were saying that this could be Boston Rob and Amber, and they got the exact almost the exact same votes as Boston Rob and Amber. They got to the end. It was such a satisfying win. It was satisfying seeing, like, for me personally, seeing Austin actually get credit that he actually performed pretty well at Final Tribal. I thought, like,
Yes.
I thought he was in a lot of ways. I thought he was like outperforming D, but D had played a better game, so she could outperform him.
Right.
And it was such an interesting thing where Jay kind of like went in the background and like, it was just a
And
battle between those two, and it was super cool. I loved it. I loved that it was like not a 7-1 vote like usual. It was like I think it was a 5-3, but it was perfect.
right. And like the fact that we had our first non 7-1 vote of the new era, it's just been was very refreshing to watch, to say the least. And honestly, I agree with you. Like Austin was fighting tooth and nail. I was thinking like his game, like in his final trial performance, was kind of out dueling hers at the beginning because didn't really take credit for anything. She just was very humble about it, which is not the thing to do in the final tribal. But eventually, Emily teed her up by asking that question about, "Hey, this vote with the Julie with the Emily vote, with my when I was voted out." When Julie played her idol is only because you told Julie about the idol. And Austin was like, no, she didn't. And he was like, I did. I told Julie. And then that's kind of like
Yeah,
the moment where
where she
Eric kind of went out of the room for Austin. And I think at that, she kind of sealed the win there with claiming that move and kind of going into that. But I was a little worried at first. I was like, D, what are you doing? Like you're
a part of me thought like, does Austin win this? like,
no,
I,
because she kind of alienated Bruce with like the comment about the idol. He kind of
mhm,
looked pissed at that. Um, and there's just some other things that I was kind of like, like
yeah.
better watch what you're saying here, because like you got to claim your game. But eventually she turned it around and was able to do that because her game spoke for itself. She's had to say it, and Austin was looking like he was the more strategic mastermind of the two of them, um, which is I feel like D had more of the social than Austin, but um, as a whole, I think, both of them battling it out was just a very fun experience to watch.
Yeah, it was definitely great. Well, let's start at the beginning. Like they get to the new camp, and the first thing it was different this time where they had to find a combination log, which I think in general it's like there's a lot of like finding numbers and putting it together, like with these like immunities, like and Jake gets it. And I think it was interesting how he like they kind of set him up for a win, like off the rip. They're like, yeah, he's like comparing himself to like all these winners, like the numbers to the winners. And so all he had to do was remember the winner, and he could remember the number,
Yeah.
which I actually think is a good way to do it. I think Stephen Fishback did that in Token Chains when he had to memorize something. They're like memorizing symbols, but he put like numbers to the symbols. So all I had to do was memorize
Yeah.
numbers. So I think it was cool. It definitely gave him an advantage, but I mean, he like squandered it so much.
Right. Yeah. There are like two big blunders in that next challenge. First, like forgetting the key and then going all the way back down and getting it. And then on the puzzle, forgetting a piece. I think
Yeah.
the two of those mistakes, like he would have definitely won the challenge and would have been able to have the leverage of not saying anything about the idol and knowing, hey, the votes are going on Katura and then just playing the idol for Katura and, seeing what happened there. But I was like, as much as I was rooting for Jake, I was like, there's just no possible way for him to win. As soon as the Katura switched her vote last minute to Julie, that's kind of what ended the game for Jake, kind of ruined his game. It's not really much she could do, and kind of ruined her own game herself, as well as Julie's, obviously, by voting her out. And that was just a big,
Yeah.
big mistake. And I was um, curious to what you thought about like that final five vote and everything leading up to it as a whole. I thought it was insane. There's four people, the four eligible people all got votes, and it was a 2-1
Yeah,
one
a two
one.
one one one, which is an insane vote count, especially in modern Survivor, in the sense that like even Dean and Austin didn't even vote together. But to me, what I saw was like I don't think a single person played particularly well in that because like the whole time I was thinking like Dee not voting for Julie nearly voted her out, like got herself voted out. Like that was probably the worst round for Dee by a mile.
Yes.
Because if Katura just did what she says, D is out, and you can take out Austin in Final Four. Like Austin didn't win immunity. Like Jake almost won immunity. Like you could have taken out Austin at 4, and then you'd have to deal with Julie. But like at that point, or Julie or Austin, which probably either of them win, but is a better outcome than going with D and Austin, the two main figureheads of the season. I think Austin, that was probably like if Austin was going to take a shot, it had to be there because we saw from the vote count he might even beat Mama J. Like he got 3 votes against D, who I think D really did outplay him. I think the edit showed him to be like a lot more clueless than he actually was. Like I think he knew what was happening. Like I don't think he
Yeah.
was dumb. But I don't know. It was just a poor round altogether. The only one I would say like played particularly well was Austin, but even then he should have voted D. But obviously they're in love. So what can you
Right.
do?
I was just like going into as soon as D won final immunity, I was like, game over, she wins. As soon as, Jake's tower fell, I was like, it's over. D wins the game. Which is
Yeah.
like, the editing has foreshadowed it so much and how much she has outsmarted Austin this whole time. Like there's no way that Austin was gonna be able to win. Um, and then I was watching some exit interviews, and I saw like if Jake ended up having to be the tiebreaker vote, like he would have voted for
Yeah.
D well probably. And so it's like
Austin never really had a chance.
Austin really didn't have ever had a chance. He had to get 5 votes, which is a lot, and I don't think he would have been able to do that. Um,
Hmm.
but
Yeah, I
as
do.
a whole, he played a really good game, and I was impressed, with him. The last few episodes have been kind of a skid for him just because of kind of the circumstances and like kind of getting a little bit, flirty and like falling into that a little
Yeah.
bit and like kind of getting into that distraction, which like totally understandable. I feel like if someone else was in a similar position, it'd be hard for them to just like turn on them after you're getting so close with someone. But like at the same time, it's for $1 million. You just gotta do what you gotta do to win. And that's what Dee did, and she proved that. And that's why she was able to get that $1 million check at the end of the day. And I think it was very impressive for her to do so.
I completely agree. I think in general, like just the way I for the final round, like final like 2 rounds for D, like it went about as well as she possibly could have. Like obviously final five, I think her thought was that the votes were just on Julie and that she could vote just with Julie or something, vote away. And just kind of like what JT did in Token Chains, where like he kept his word technically while still voting out coach. But it almost backfired. And if she doesn't win final immunity, I think she's fine. Like the most I can imagine is an Austin and D fire making, and the winner of that wins the game.
Right.
And that was like her worst case scenario is fire making against Austin, and like we don't really know if she's good at fire making or not.
Yeah, it seems like Austin was really good.
I would assume Austin beats her, but like that's still like pretty good odds in the sense that Austin takes her, she takes Austin. There's a chance Katura takes D because Jake wanted to do fire, and like I mean Jake, Jake probably takes who knows what Jake does, but he probably puts himself in the fire making, honestly, against
Yeah.
Austin or D. But either way, I mean, Dee's an incredible winner, incredible story. I think she played this about as well as she could have. I mean, obviously, no winner's perfect unless you're like
Right.
Kim. But like even then, I would say like if I had to like put where I think she is on like winners, I would say she's like around the 10 area. Like I think she was like an Earl Cole like trajectory, and like I do factor in like how many votes you get at final tribal, but like at the same time, Austin played a great game. Like he had locked votes going into it. And I think D probably lost a vote, and I think Bruce voted for Austin, which I
Right.
think he might have was going to anyways, so it's not that big of a deal. But either way, I don't think she held. But I think she's a great winner, easily top 15, if not top 10.
Yeah.
Um, she shows like what she kind of like built upon like we've seen in winners. Like Erica kind of like showed like what is like the blueprint of like how to win in the modern era, and then like you move on of like Marianne like replicating that but pulling off a big move and having a great final tribal adding on to it. You see Gabler with the alligator strategy of like coming up and down, which is what D did. Like she was perfect at it, which was like managing your threat. And then I thought Jam Jam like almost perfected it of having a duo, cutting the duo out like 4, and just being overly social and managing your threat perfectly. And then D wraps it all together here, where she had move after move after move. She had the alliance of the season. She was fluid. She had great social connections. Even though she was targeted a lot, she only got 1 vote, or she got 2 votes at the end of it, I think, which is still like
Yes.
incredibly impressive. But like, I mean, great winner. I love her story. She's easily one of my favorite players of the new era, if not all of Survivor.
Yeah. I think she was just like one Katura panic attack from going home, which is like
That's
I
big.
think that is a big splotch on our game, like you said earlier. But as a whole, I think she played it perfectly. No one was willing to vote her out for so long, and it got to the point where it's like, well, might as well just give her $1 million. She's already almost there. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know what was going through Katura's head. I know she was just saying like she was doubting, the plan and whether or not there was enough votes on D. Which then again,
Doesn't
true.
I
And
don't think that
she wasn't sure about Jake having an idol or like playing the idol on her or not. So she was also worried about that. Which at that point it's like I don't Couture didn't realize like her going home there, like that's probably better for her game. I mean, not obviously she doesn't get to go to the end, but I'm like the chance to get out D is I feel like it's worth taking that risk, versus like, oh, I could go home here, but I have to go out swinging, if I get this, if I pull this move off, like that'll be something great for my resume. I need that. If I don't get this, I'm kind of just floating in the water. I don't really have a good shot. And she didn't really realize that. I think D kind of saying like, "Oh, I'm really worried about Katura and the fire making, like to like making it to the end." I was like, I disagree. If like it was gonna be D and Austin and Katura, like it would have been probably the same scenario. Like Katura would probably get 0 votes. Um, but you don't know. But I'd figure that because a lot of people online are kind of really pissed at Katura for this move, which like
yeah.
I don't understand. Um,
I don't get
I think
getting mad about it, but I can see their point of view in the sense of like that was your shot at D. Like Jake set it up perfectly. Like he played an idol on you. And like her reasoning, which I kind of get like the confusion of. She was like, "Well, if you told me about the idol, then I probably would have done it." But like, I don't think that's true. Like, I think if she knew like Jake was gonna idol her, she would have tried something else. Because
yeah,
like, she never listened to Jake the entire. Like, you could see it looking back on the season. The whole thing was just leading up to the fact that like Jake was telling her to do a move and she didn't do it. Like, always telling her to do a move, didn't do it. And they get to the moment where D is right there and they have their shot and they miss because Couture didn't believe Jake. Is like I can see how that's frustrating because like Jake is
yeah,
like a fan favorite. Like,
right.
dude,
And
such a positive attitude, and like
right.
Katura, like I get is like obviously not as likable as Jake. She's not like unlikable by any means. She has a great story, but Jake is one of the most likable people to be on Survivor in a minute, and he
Yeah.
was a losing finalist. Like he's a super charismatic, and Katura like doing that just kind of like to me cemented like she actually doesn't have like the greatest strategic ability, which isn't like she has
No.
zero, but it's like just wasn't good. Like it just wasn't amazing. Her social bonds were like okay. Like her best one was D, but D beats her.
Right.
And I don't know. I just like I could see the frustration. I don't think she deserves hate or anything. Like she got to the final four?
Yeah.
Like that's impressive. Like
That's
that's very good. And she probably there's a chance if it was like Katura versus Jake and someone else, like another goat, if it was something like that, she had a shot at winning. Like I don't think anyone was beating Ariba, but that was just like strategy she didn't think of earlier.
right. And I think I enjoyed her and her storyline as a whole, like of the whole season. I think, she had a lot of just against Bruce. We were a majority of the pre-merge in and going into the merge until Bruce was gone. And then after that, we kind of saw her game a little bit more. And I think people were just like, hey, we need to see more of her strategy. Like, I don't know if she had it, like I think
Hmm.
she was just playing the social game very well. I think she was, socially like everyone, she was well liked and a lot of people would say that. Um and I think we did see that with just with her relationships with people. We saw that like she's kind of ended up being in Reba's pocket, towards the end there, like, hey, Reba's using her on a lot of votes for different things like getting out Bruce, on the same plan to, you know, take out Julie at the final six, different stuff like that. Or sorry, take out Drew at the final six. And
Hmm.
I her strategy was just not really there, and that was kind of proven with Jake saying, "Let's do this. Like this is our only chance," and her saying no. And then that's with the Caleb vote earlier in the season, and then we have this right here where it kind of all comes down to this. This is the biggest move of the season. If we can take out D, we have a shot. Can't do it. Um, and so I just was very kind of let down by that. And I was just like rooting for my boy Jake, because he was just such a likable guy.
Yeah.
Like, not that I wasn't rooting for D because she's an incredible winner, and I'm glad that we had such a strong winner in this season. But like, there's a lot of instances in this season where players would not, from our perspective, would not do what's best for them, and that's just frustrating as a viewer to watch. And I think that's why the Survivor community can get frustrated. It's like, oh, you got to do this, it's
But
Monday morning quarterbacking, but it's like at the same time, like in hindsight, the players themselves are like, yeah, I should have done that, but like just watching them not do it is just really hard to watch, I think, as a viewer.
no, yeah. And like I get it. We get all the information, like we get it. And like from Couture's point of view, who knows what D was telling her and like what Austin was telling her. Like they didn't even know what was happening. And like if you think about it, like taking out Julie's like not that bad. Like she's a threat, but it was the fact that like D was gonna beat everyone. She was the big player, the person that's gonna be remembered forever. Like isn't going to be a winner like Gabler where everyone's mad. Like she is the one everyone wanted to win, and it's kind of frustrating when like you have a shot and it's almost like a way. Not like I don't think it was bad on D's end or anything. Like it was a weird vote to begin with, but like I don't know. Like there's always going to be that thing where they're like, oh yeah, but D like got really lucky. Like it's the same thing with Tyson and the rock draw. Like even though you played a great game, like people are gonna be like, well, you could have been rocked out. Or all these things were like, I think there's an element of luck as Survivor no one really talks about, which I mean, this is like Dee's luckiest moment by far, but also in the sense of like, Katura just wasn't playing optimally in a sense when she was told to play optimally. It was the same thing with Xander when he was told like, hey, Erica's gonna beat you, and he decided to take her. Like he's not playing optimally. That's why everyone was frustrated with him. And so, I don't think she deserves to hate by any means. She was like, she was good TV. Like her rivalry with Bruce has been like one of the best rivalries we've seen in a minute. Obviously, we all wish that like she was playing optimally for herself. Like I just wish she did that for herself as well. But it's nothing bad. I think she would do pretty decent on a return. I don't think she will return personally.
Mhm.
I think there's just so many more like different people to return. And I think her and Jake's game were sunk once four Rebos were, four Rebos were at the final six. Like there
Right.
was no situation where they could have beat any of them. I
Right.
don't think they even Drew because they seem to like have a lot of respect for Drew out there.
Yeah, for sure. And I
Yeah,
don't
so that was
think
my
Austin
tip.
either. Like obviously, like it seems like from the jury's perspective, Austin was doing a lot, you know. And so going into more like the final challenge, Jake breaking it, like that was an insane moment.
Oh my
Um,
gosh,
I cannot believe that happened, and I was just that was a lot of fun to that whole moment. You know, Jeff's snarkiness is back in full force
he's
after
back, baby.
the two quits that broke him again.
It
So that
was
was
a sacrifice that needed to be made.
I know it was. And just like, nope, you're out, you're done.
You're
Uh,
done. You're done.
that's
You're
on
out.
a future Jeff Probst King of Sass video for sure. Uh,
Has to be.
but I enjoyed that moment. I thought it was pretty funny, all the memes I saw about it. It was like Jeff being so nice to Katura, you know, when she was like, you know, hopping off the challenge because she was scared of the water, and then it was like Jeff when Jake breaks the challenge.
I know. I mean, you feel bad for Jake, but
Yeah,
like, don't break it.
don't break it. Don't just do that. Yeah, he is a little
And like, I was
get a
like,
little frustrated.
I don't know. I always those challenges with like the Bulls, it usually comes down to like a timer. Like Jeff's like, okay, you have like 10 more seconds. Whoever has the most Bulls by then wins. And then like they just like straight won it. And I will say that it was like such like I think she knew she won. Like her reaction to putting the last bull down and realizing like all she had to do was get back. Like I think she knew she won. Which I always think is like one of the coolest things in Survivor when someone wins final immunity and they like recognize they did it. Like one of my favorite moments of all Survivors, Boston Rob winning final immunity, and he
Mhm.
finally realized he won Survivor because no one could beat him at that point. And like it was cool seeing Dee kind of have that moment of like her just like freaking out and then doing it, and she was like, "I did it, I won." Like she knew she could beat Austin, and obviously it was a lot closer than I think she realized, but like, I mean, a 5-3 vote is pretty good. Like, that's a pretty decent win, I think.
Yeah, I don't think the vote count really says anything about it. I think her, you know, as a whole, like she's just has proven to be a really great winner, you know, throughout the season. And we've seen that, you know, over and over again, like her way or the highway, you know, from a lot of the different votes, like taking out Kendra because Kendra threw out her name, like that was all her, you know.
Mhm.
She drove a lot of the votes, you know, and then she lied to her number one ally to do what's best for her game, you know, multiple times. And even in the final three, he didn't realize that, you know. And so I feel
Yeah,
like that really showed like she was willing to be cutthroat at the right times for her game, and she made the move she needed to do to win $1 million. And I think that's very impressive on her. And then skip back a little bit. We were talking about Jake and like how likable he is, you know. As far as like returnees on this season, like I feel like Jake could be a lock to come back. Like he's just such a likable guy.
that's
And I think like overall, yeah, he's definitely a lock. I think Drew could come back just because of like how much Jeff was like, "Hey, give me an analogy," you know, like, and
he
he just,
loves the analogies.
yeah, he just spit it out. You know, he gives Survivor all that they want. You know, I think Drew could be a good returnee, and I think Kaleb could be a great returnee. We've talked about him a lot, but
I
um,
think he's a lot.
yeah, and then Emily maybe, you know, like from
I
that.
know, yeah. I mean, I think Emily, if she'd want to come back, is such an easy, like, she kind of like stole the finale to me. Like,
I
her
know.
comments when voting D was hilarious. Like, I swear, if you spend a single cent on that boy, like that was perfect. And like I like that like she was kind of the one that kind of broke the ice and like asked really hard questions. And it was kind of like like almost mirroring like how she talked to Bruce. Like it
Yeah,
was very direct, very old school Emily, but
right.
like now at the end of her journey. And I think it was perfect. I think it was great.
She was the
Yeah,
perfect, you know, like she really I enjoyed watching Final Tribal so much more because of like her being there and asking those questions. We didn't even see a question from Bruce. Like that was that was interesting to
I
watch.
know. I was like, did he not say anything? Like,
It's kind of a new final tribal format. Like they each had their chance to talk to the guy, like people and ask them a question. I think
yeah,
that was really interesting. I think the kind of, rites of passage, semi return was really cool as far as the jury
I
members.
liked it.
Um, it was different. It's obviously not the same, but like I thought that was great. Like we each got like a little flashback from each of the jurors, in the season. I wish we got to like look back and see them talk about like random people they didn't know, like like Brandon and like
Yeah, they're like, dude, Brandon was awesome. It's like you
you
guys didn't even know
you
him.
didn't even meet him. That's always the best about like the old school ones, where they
Yeah.
had no idea who they were, and they would have to
Mm-hmm.
talk about them. Um, and then we didn't even have like a full season recap at the beginning of the episode, like a previously on,
Mm-hmm.
have the full season recap like we usually do, um, which was interesting. But I think as a whole, like the final tribal council, we've talked about this a little bit, but just the battle was just really cool to watch. Austin just
Great.
swinging for it, like, hey, this was my move. I did this. And kind of stealing the show from D a little bit. It took D a second to get acclimated, but eventually she was able to actually say, like, guys, I did not tell Austin about this, and I did
Mm-hmm.
what's best for my game. And she finally got the momentum there. But and then Jake was just sitting there the whole time, and I was just sad to
I
watch.
was like,
Yeah,
I
he's just
know.
kind of
I liked when Jake talked. I think he kind of recognized that like this isn't about him, and like kind of let D and Austin kind of go at it. Where I think in general at finals probably you should try to be the first one to talk. Take initiative, take kind of get to set the scene pretty much, and like it gives you a lot of opportunity to bait them into like arguing with you, stuff like that. In which I think like cutting someone off during a question is just like overall bad. You shouldn't
yeah,
do that. I do
absolutely.
think like laughing at a question is good. Like if someone responds, you're like or something like that's better. But I think Austin really took initiative, and I do think that like I mean it was a game losing move, telling D straight up. I do think there is a shot that he like if somehow Julie goes home there and then the game runs out the way Austin intended it, then I think there's a shot he beats D. If not, like votes her out, like just naturally because Drew would ask for it.
Yeah. I think
But
it's the pivotal moment of the season, is Austin
mhm,
telling Dee the plan to take out Julie. I think Austin like had the cards to go out and win the game after that. Like he still had Drew, he still had Emily. If Julie actually got voted out in seven, and then at that point, he could take the three of them. I don't think that Jaker, or Katura would go with D, maybe Katura. But at that point they'd have the majority and would be able to be like, all right, let's vote out D, and then who knows what happens there. But like that was just such a pivotal moment. And I think we kind of recognized that like when it happened, like, whoa, this is big. And it came out full force, and the end of the at by the end of the season, we were like, man, that was such a big moment for the show and for the season specifically in its story.
mhm. It was cool. We didn't have like I feel like outside of the Caleb tribal, perhaps there wasn't like this like Cody like blindside like this crazy like numbers game of like what was happening. Like we had like cool things with like the 1-1-1-2 or like even the Kelly blindside. But I think like the whole story of like 45 was just like it was a good story of like how D went, like her coronation of like this great player playing this great game, the showmance, all of it. Like it was what you really want a survivor where like I could love any of these people returning. If I had to guess who would return, I think Caleb returns. I think Kelly is inclined to return. I think Jake is a lock. I actually think Austin is a very likely returnee. Because I mean he's golden boy. He played a great game. I think like seeing him come back and win this like Boston Rob Amber situation again would be an insane storyline. I just think there's a lot of returning potential in this, where I think if a lot of these players came back, they would do great. Because I think like specifically Jake, if he had power, like he made like the correct like he knew what he was doing. Like I felt like he knew at every point like what would be his best move. It was the fact that he didn't have the capital to do it.
Hmm. And I think this finale also showed why we need a live finale, like a live one again, just because
Mhm.
of like everyone's like, what's going on with Ian Austin now? Like what's like all these questions about people's real life that we just do not know. I think the best way to do it would be like have that after show to prevent spoilers, just leaking and all the necessary reasons that they do it now. And then have another just like live show that they can put on like Paramount Plus or something, or like I don't know what they would decide to do, but like air it later or like a reunion from like a recorded reunion. I don't care what it is, but like
Something.
I do miss the old like live finales. Like it would be an event people would get to go to, and just like celebrate Survivor together. And I think that's really cool. I think we're missing that as a community. But
Yeah.
it's not such a big deal to me as the season 46 preview, which was just whack. I thought the logo
Yeah.
was cool, but we just had like clips from everyone's audition and like Jeff saying at the beginning, a new tribe is forming. Like I was just like, what is going on? Like I don't.
Yeah. It was definitely interesting. I mean, it was kind of reminiscent of 44 in the sense of like I feel like 44 we got to see a lot of like the behind the scenes of like I started out with like them talking to the producer, like stuff
Yeah,
that we just don't see. And seeing like audition videos, I think in general is like pretty good. Just like to see like where they're coming from. And we got to see I don't know any of their names, but we got to see like one player and he said something like he was like oh, it was actually hilarious. He was just like, but he's like test negative or like stay positive, test negative. And I was like, that's actually hilarious. Like, what are you on about? Like, and you could see like he gets his buff and he's like freaking out. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, usually, like in promotion, the people they're promoting are the ones that are gonna last a little bit. So I assume that guy's gonna be like at least make it a swap or something.
yeah, who
But
knows?
I don't know. We didn't get a sense of like any. I didn't get to see like any of their faces really. Like
Yeah.
I
It
don't
was
even know what the theme
I
is.
know, I mean, it was like a nighttime like looking, logo, like with like the moon, like stars and stuff was kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like a midnight blue kind of color. But I don't know. I'm just like it's getting to the point where all of them are running together. Like all these seasons are the same. No distinguishing
Yeah,
here. Except for 45 being not the first 90 minutes, but like if all of them are just gonna be 90 minutes going forward, it's just gonna be like, I don't know.
I hope they are. I mean, it was perfect. I can't
Yeah,
imagine the season not being 90 minutes. It would
I
be a
know
lot worse.
that would really not help going forward. I think CBS is realizing that because like they hit number one. I saw an article they hit number one in like the 18 to 50 something 49 demographic, I think, like something like
Mhm.
that. Um, for like the fourth time in the show's history.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So like that's this season, that's 23 years into Survivor. So I think that's an incredible stat. Um, and then I guess I don't really have much else to say. I'm just excited to watch, 46 and see how the next season shakes up. I'm honestly like tired of waiting for, a returnee season. I'm just ready for it.
You're gonna be waiting for a while, buddy.
I know. I know. And it's sad to me. We need 48 to be a returnee season.
It won't
Um,
be. No,
I
it
know.
won't.
I know.
I do have a question for you because I saw this. Because so I saw someone on Twitter being like, you know what, I'm sick of everyone calling it 41, 42. What would you name, like, from the 5 seasons, what would you name, like, each season if you had to give it a theme? Like, it'd be like Survivor, blah, 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 like how it used to be David versus Goliath and all that.
Yeah. That's a good question. Do you have any ones to start out with, like, so I can be like thinking?
I always thought that, like, Survivor for, like, 41 was just, like, Survivor 41, like, New Era,
Yeah, Dawn of
or
the.
Survivor, like, Dawn of New Era, or, like, Survivor 41, Hourglass Island. Like, something like that where it's like an actual like vocal point. Like I get it was at 42, but like 42 like they did nothing with it.
Yeah.
And then I think like 42, I said it was gonna be like Lock and Key because that was like the theme of like at least you know. And then I didn't really know about Survivor 43. There was not like a active thing other than 44 being like medieval knights. So
Yeah.
43 was like the random one. I was like, I don't freaking know.
Yeah, there's like an octopus on the
I know it's just like the return of Gabler.
Gabler, you know, the alligabler. I don't know.
Yeah, alligators.
I think I don't know. Like that's a hard thing. I have to think about it more. Like I think
Hmm.
yeah, I can't just give you a straight off answer. Season 43, you know, octopus versus alligator. Or
Yes.
alligabler.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought it was cool. I'm excited for the future of Survivor. Every time I'm like, new newbies, like what's gonna happen, the evolution of the game, which
Yeah.
like is one of my favorite parts of it. I think we saw a lot of evolution of this game. Um, Specifically how important a duo is. Like
Yeah.
this season was like if I had to give a theme to the season, it's like duo. Like who's the best duo?
Yeah. Right.
That are being like authentic to yourself. Which I think is why like they try to like put it as like Dee was the most authentic to herself, which I think she was very authentic. But I don't think that's the reason she won. Like,
Yeah.
but I do think like she was authentic because I thought everyone was authentic to themselves. The only ones that weren't were like Katura lying about being a lawyer.
Yeah.
Like that didn't really like mean anything. So I don't know. I'm excited. Well,
We'll see what happens. Well, I'll take us home from here. That's a wrap for season 45 of Survivor. Thank you all for everyone who's listened. This is our first season podcasting, so please stay tuned. We'll have some, you know, during the off season, we'll have some special episodes that we'll figure out and actually come out with. And hope you all have a Merry Christmas. I know it's coming in a few days. So, and then a new year as well coming up soon as well. So thank you all for listening. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe because we'll be coming out with that extra content during the off season, as well as previewing the cast, um, doing some ranking videos, doing some just breakdown videos of whatever is interest to us at the moment. And then if you're listening to podcast form, you can listen to wherever we listen to podcasts. Please rate and review us. That'd mean a lot. So thank you guys for listening for this season, and we'll be back to start out with season 46 of Survivor.
yes, sir. See you guys.